Welcome to Smallbrain Podcast, episode 5. Today we have Emmanuel Nel Gabriel.
Hey.
Do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Emmanuel. I come from France. I'm 40 years old, and I've been making music for all my life. So right now, I'm making mostly electronic music, but it kind of started a long time, and it's a long story. So should I get right to it?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So yeah, I was born in the late 70s, and I don't really know where to start. So I've always loved music. My mother used to play the guitar a little bit, so I always had that sensitivity. But in my family, nobody really made any music other than my mom, who played a little bit of guitar, a little bit of piano. And there's a fun history thing is I've learned when I was 7 years old that who I thought was my dad wasn't my dad, actually. And my actual dad was a friend of the family who happened to be a musician. So I was already, a little bit into music. I had a small synth. It wasn't really a synth, some stuff with the drums and rhythm and the general MIDI kind of stuff. So I was playing some music back then, a little bit of piano. And when I was around 12, 13, my mom decided I should get to know my real father a little bit more. And he had a cover band of rhythm and blues covers, so stuff like Otis Redding and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really want to be a part of that, but I wanted to make some music. I just went into, I guess you can call it junior high school when you're 12, 13. I don't know. In France, we say college, but in the US, college is like university.
Right.
Anyway, so I went to that band. It would be some great experience. I made a little bit of money, and the great thing is that I really got acquainted with a lot of musicians, like professional musicians, when I was really young, like 12, 13 years old. We were having gigs every week or every other week. I was making a little bit of money, and at the same time, it gave me, a little bit of experience. So I made my own rock, I guess, metal band that was not cover. So I started composing then. And basically, between my teenage years, it was all about music. I went to school a little bit. I didn't really care that much about school, but I went there. It was all about music. And we started, becoming a little bit more serious when I was 17, 18, 19. I did go to college for, a little bit.
Right.
It was more, to get out of my small town. I did go to college, and my music taste evolved a little bit. So we were more into like jazz, soul, kind of funky hip hop kind of music.
Right.
So that's in the mid 90s, and at the time I really hated everything that had to do with electronic music. It felt like, I was one of these guys. You just push a button and it plays all by itself. It's not real music. You have to use real instruments. And I was playing the guitar a lot, and I wanted to become a very good and very impressive guitarist. I wanted to do like solo and that kind of stuff. So I worked really hard at the guitar, and to the point where I kind of got disgusted by music.
Right.
Because I was doing nothing but trying to play faster and more complicated things. And I didn't realize that I wasn't doing any music. So I kind of got disgusted with it. And I said, the hell with it, and just bought 2 turntables. So just started, mixing like techno and house. And
that should be your bio. To hell with it. And I bought 2 turntables.
Yeah. The reasons why I got into the music I'm doing right now are kind of interesting because electronic music was like techno. It was like, no, I don't want to make real music anymore. I just want to have fun and get laid and that kind of stuff. So I became a DJ. It was everyone wanted to become a DJ back in the late 90s.
Right.
So I became a DJ and I played some gigs. It was fun. I did this for a few years, and around the same time, I was still, making some music with my friends, and we started to, have Cubase 3 audio. So that was new on a PC. You could record audio by yourself. So we started recording, guitars and stuff. Like we didn't have much gears, but we made drums with Reason. The program, the software Reason.
Right. Propeller head.
Yeah. So we used that. I'm not even sure it was out back then. It's a long time ago. But we did, how we could, and it kind of drifted into hip hop music, and that's also like a very stupid story. So I wasn't allowed into music forums back then.
Right.
We had Facebooks and stuff. So we had like MySpace and SoundClick, which was what I was using back then to put some music out. And I was on a French forum that's called Audio Fanzine. I think now they have
I'm in that
US version, English version right now. So they had a very active hip hop subsection. So it seemed interesting, and I didn't really like hip hop, but I thought, I'm a real musician, so that should be easy for me. So I went there and started to like diss everyone. You guys are all bad, and I'm a real musician. Let me show you. And I started, using the PC and the other kind of stuff. I started to try and make hip hop beats, and it wasn't pretty.
Right.
It really wasn't pretty. I still have some of the old beats somewhere on the hard drive. But I got to meet nice people, and they're really nasty to me, but it was deserved. And
right.
I had the opportunity to learn and to learn to appreciate that kind of music, like the loop, and that's also something I learned to appreciate doing techno and house music, DJing, is the idea of the loop, and the repetitive pattern, and how. Like before that, music was all about playing fast and playing complicated things. That kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Once I got into these kind of for the time kind of alternative music styles, I was like, I remember I was at a party. I played, I think, the opening. It was more than 20 years ago, actually. So I played the opening gig, like the first couple of hours. And there was a really good DJ, like regional DJ, but really, really good. I think right now he's artistic director at Locomotive at Paris, or he used to be that. His name is Anthony. So maybe I think people could probably Google him, like DJ Anthony, and find someone. Maybe we can put some links.
Yeah.
And I remember, so back then I wasn't even smoking weed, and I didn't drink, and I just enjoyed dancing, So I went to the dance floor and started dancing, and the setup was like the mix setup was so good, the music was so good. Something weird happened to me. And now I'm somewhat able to describe it. It was almost like an out-of-body experience.
Right.
In retrospect, it really felt like a psychedelic experience. So you always have the question, maybe someone slipped something in my drink. I used to be careful back then, but you never know. It was a long time ago. But
right.
This experience really stayed with me because it was at one point I just kept dancing, and it felt like I was somewhere in between Saturn and Jupiter, like flying.
Yeah.
And it was such a deep and profound experience. It kind of stayed with me, but in the background, you know.
Right.
They changed something, and
Mm-hmm.
you had this idea of the loop and repetitive pattern, and it felt a little bit like, you know, very ancient African rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
tribal, uh, ceremonial, shamanic kind of feel.
Right.
You know, so this is how I got a little bit more into, you know, electronic music, hip hop music, but French. Well, actually, that's funny. That's funny also. French rapper. So I was looking for rappers to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody wanted to collaborate with me because my music was so weird, and they all wanted, like, back in the days, they all wanted something like DJ Premier, stuff like that. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I was already somewhat, you know, into semi-electronic, semi-acoustic stuff, but with a hip-hop groove.
Yeah.
So they didn't like it. So I went on like American forums, and people there seemed to like it. So we started to make some collaboration. I got a little bit better. We had a few like more serious projects going on, and yeah, that's basically the first half of my life. I was maybe 24, 25 when I got married, and music kind of went on the back burner for some time. It was a hard time. Like, I'm divorced now, and the marriage was very difficult because it was a time I didn't really know who I was. I knew I really loved music. It didn't seem like an option back then. Doesn't really, you know.
Right.
It was pretty much not pre-internet, but internet wasn't then what it is now. You didn't have, you know, all the social network and that kind of stuff. So I was 24. I was born in 78. So that, you know, in beginning of 2000s. So yeah, and I got married. I became a father at 24 and kind of went for the job route, but couldn't really keep a job. So obviously kind of put some strain onto the marriage, and I made some mistakes. You know, I was young, and yeah, it was almost 10 years, really difficult 10 years. I was still playing some music. You know, I had a Rhodes piano, and I was playing a little bit myself. I wasn't recording anything, and you know, and it was not until I got divorced that I was like, all right, now I'm doing just what I want to do. Music is the most important thing in my life, and I came to this realization: if I wanted anything to ever happen, I needed to really get to work and not consider that I was never good enough. You know, I wanted to start learning and make sure that I was, you know, if it didn't happen, I didn't want it to be my fault.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
So I started making music after my marriage. It started a little bit like hip hop again, but I quickly went into what I'm doing right now, which is much more. I don't even know. Like, people ask me what genre of music are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it's a little bit, you know, hip hop influence. Sometimes it's completely, you know,
Right. No, I get that.
Random music. So yeah, it's really like music to me now. It's more like a religious experience.
Mm-hmm.
In that it feels like this is something I was put on earth to do, whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, wherever this road may lead me. This is who I am right now, and this is who I'll always be. And I feel I should be the best person that I can, you know, as a human being, but also as a musician.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, I really got into working hard, you know, recording a lot, practicing my you know, to become a better piano player, learning music theory. And music theory actually blows my mind, because like harmonic series, stuff like that. It's the deeper you dig into that, and the more you realize some music is something special because I don't know if you're familiar with the harmonic series.
A little bit more the mathematical side of it.
Yeah, well, it's all mathematical anyway. So for each note that you hear the harmonics that are you add the frequency. So say the first harmonics are I'm just gonna try. So for a C. Oh. Is it too loud?
Maybe drop it down a tiny bit, just a teeny little bit of a turn.
Right.
A little bit more.
More louder, you mean?
A little bit quieter.
All right.
That's good there.
All right, great. So you got a C, right?
Mm-hmm.
First harmonic is you take the frequency and you double it basically. You add the frequency to itself, so you have C and you have the C an octave higher.
Mm-hmm.
Then you always add the fundamental frequency, so you have the fifth and you have the third and you have all the series, and in the end you have all the notes in the harmonic series.
Right.
And music theory seems to be like, I always thought it was arbitrary. Like someone told, all right, we're going to use this 12-tone system and because it sounds nice and that's it. But actually, I found out it seems to be ingrained in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because music is so deep and personal, and it carries a lot of feeling and kind of stuff you cannot really express. But it has its roots in nature, and that's mind-blowing,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, with the harmonic series and the different series that you find all around the place, like the what's it called, the Pythagorean? No, not that one. The golden ratio and stuff like that. They all kind of correspond together.
Oh yeah, and you also have stuff like the circle of fifths or circle of fourths.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I really learned about these maybe a few months ago, a year ago. Before that, I was learning a little bit, chord and stuff, and I wanted to get more more deeper into that. And I stumbled upon harmonic series, and I started to learn a little bit about that. And circle of fifth, circle of fourth, and I'm kind of experimenting a little bit. Like I'm doing a few DJ sets, nothing with turntables on Tractor, and I thought I would maybe try to mix according to the circle of fifth or circle of fourth.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The tonality of use the next track, maybe fifth higher or lower or fourth. I wanted to experiment. So right now I'm experimenting a lot. I'm not making a lot of music. I'm making a lot of noise though, and it's fun.
Yeah, I mean that sounds really cool.
So right now. So we've met, you and I, maybe a couple months ago now.
Yeah, probably 2 months, 3 maybe. 2, yeah, probably 2.
Goes fast. So it's the 5th episode right now of the podcast.
I know, it's crazy.
For those who maybe catch this episode as the first, we both Tommy here is the head of Smallbrain Records, and we started working together. So I'm making my next releases that will be next month actually on Smallbrain Records. So stay tuned. And it's been a really nice ride for the last say 3 to 4 years, because I've started to I don't know if I should get into that. Maybe I should. So when I let me just backtrack a little bit. So when I got divorced, I've always been smoking weed since I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm a functioning addict. I probably wouldn't be able to I really like weed. It mellows me out. So, but I never was into any kind of other psychoactive substance because, like drugs are bad, Like,
Right, for sure.
I know a few people who got mixed with hard drugs and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, weed seems to be fine, and I'm never ever gonna touch anything else. But a fun thing happened. I was watching some kind of Q&A
Hmm.
online. I was just watching a comedy special from Joe Rogan.
Oh, right.
He had a Q&A at the end, and some guy just asked, what can you tell us about DMT? And I wasn't really listening. I was doing something else on the computer, but I heard him say, "Oh, it's like you push Control Alt Delete on your computer, and it starts again, and you have you like all your icons in the desktop. They're all gone into one folder that's named My Old Bullshit, and then you get to decide whether or not you want to go back into your own old bullshit, or if you want to start fresh." And at first, I was doing something else on the computer, so I didn't really register it, except for that part. So maybe a
Hmm.
couple of months later, I was watching that comedy special again, and I was like, "Oh, he had this Q&A, and it was interesting." So I listened, and all right. So what's DMT? So what is it? Is it a medicine or something? So I Google it. I look into it, and it turns out it's a psychedelic. So I say, oh, it's a drug. So that's not really good. So I do some research, and I figured maybe I should try it. See,
Hmm.
so I went into something like it was maybe a couple of years where I had like regular psychedelic experiences, and it really kind of changed my outlook on everything. It's including music. Like it's this is when I came to the realization that me doing music, it was an actual religious experience. It was a communion with something that was like underlying,
Hmm.
the real what we call reality, and that so what I've kind of learned, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm, this is also something, but what it seems to be like, there seem to be, when you watch a movie,
Right,
you
right.
what you're doing, you're basically watching a man-made universe unfold in front of your eyes. So you see characters, you see a timeline, you see places. You have, in a movie, you can have different laws of physics. You have a different relationship to time, but it's basically a mini man-made universe. And what you're looking at is the results of the universe. But what you don't, so you see the characters, you see, you can call it, this is a real reality of this universe. But you understand that behind this, what you see, you have technicians, you have people with camera, you have people with lights and sound and everything, but you don't see that when you watch a movie. And it's a little bit the
True.
same. Like, I feel it's a little bit the same with reality, that we interact. Like, a movie character isn't aware of the camera. A movie character is
Yeah,
an actual
true.
character who's not aware. Like, sometimes in some movies it can happen. It can be
Hmm.
like in Spaceballs. So, but most of the time it's like you're watching a mini universe. So what we see right now, we are the characters in the movie of our universe, right?
Right.
And we don't see the cameras, we don't see the sound engineer, we don't see, the scenario, we don't see what makes the universe happen. But it
Mm.
doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that it does. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but it seems to me like when we make music, we kind of reach into that other place,
Yeah, for sure.
that where everything is happening.
Hmm.
It kind of seemed to go beyond, because when you think about it, music doesn't really make sense.
No, not at all.
It's just you sing stuff with a pitched voice, like la 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 la. It doesn't really like. It's not like if you're really thinking pragmatically, it doesn't serve any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually does. But you cannot explain what the purpose is. What the purpose is. Really, maybe you can relax. Maybe it can, help you focus for work or whatever. But the fact that music exists is not something like we can understand how it works with the harmonic series.
Right.
I think that's the mind-blowing thing. Is the only basically the only relationship between music and the reality is this, the harmonic series, the music theory, and how it's built. But that's it. Everything else that music is something that you cannot really explain what it is and what is the purpose of it. So yeah, this is a realization I came, this and a few others, of course, but I'm not
right.
Really, like the nature of, you never know when you have this experience. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're in there, you're sure, you all right, that's how infinity works. That's all right. But once you get out of it, you can remember, you can remember that you are sure that you are in front of something amazing.
Right.
But you don't really remember. It's not this is if you have one experience and then you take a break, maybe a few weeks or so, and you have another one. The very first thing that came to my mind always is, I didn't remember how it was so intense, it was so deep,
Right.
So you think you remember when you come back, but you really don't. You take away a few. Well, I don't even want to call them lessons, because it's easy, I think, when you're in this kind of mindset to feel that you're kind of privileged.
Right.
Like you're the one, like Neo, and like there's always some people who use psychedelic and they think they're shaman,
Right. Mm-hmm.
They even call it the shaman complex. So
right.
It's that feeling that you've been blessed with some sort of deeper knowledge, and that kind of makes you better than other people. And that's kind of the trap, because it's so amazing. Like what you're exposed to, it's so otherworldly and alien, and you couldn't I could be making music my whole life and never even come close to describe through music what I've experienced. But I can try,
For sure.
But it's so absolute and alien and different. Like you have impossible shapes, impossible colors. Like when you're in the experience, you say, all right, that's what it is, I guess. But once you get out, you just left with this feeling of, I don't know anything about life. Because you go to this kind of other side and you have this incredible experience, and it removes you of the feeling of certainty. And that's really good, because then you can learn. You can open possibilities. I remember I had this one experience, and I don't always listen to music. Sometimes I do, but I'm not having this experience. Like it's been years now. But I remember I was listening to Mahler. I think it was the Third Symphony Adagio, which is an absolutely beautiful piece of music. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, it's too bad I cannot do music that as good." And at the same time, I thought to myself again, why not? I mean, you can always try. You can work as hard as you can. You can learn more. You can work more. And you can try. Maybe you won't succeed, but you can always try, and maybe you will succeed. Maybe you will make something you will make great music. And I thought, yeah, maybe I can try. Maybe I could try harder. Maybe I could, spend more time in the studio, and maybe I could learn a little bit more. And this moment, I think it was really a turning point, because as soon as I was out of the experience, I went to the studio and started making music.
Right.
I never really stopped. This is what I do now. Like, I do other stuff, but the first thing when I wake up, make my coffee, I go to the bathroom, and I go to the studio. Maybe I listen to some music. Maybe I try to play a few notes on the piano. Maybe on the sixth. Maybe who knows. But this is what I do. And if I don't have anything else to do, this is what what I'll be doing. I don't go out. I don't watch TV. Sometimes, I'm guilty of spending time online, but not that much. Like, not as much as I used to.
Right.
Also, it's after that experience. Like, I didn't really feel like losing more time doing nonsense.
And I guess to touch on that, like, for example, one of my all-time. No, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of him, but someone I think is quite interesting is, like, for example, Aphex Twin. The stuff he says about when he makes music and his routines for going into the studio and stuff. What would you say? Like, do you have a certain time that like, oh, I should go in. This is when I should work on a new track. This is when I, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm feeling this way, so I should work on this, or I'm feeling this way, so I should do this.
It used to be like that. Like, years ago, it used to be like that. And now it's not anymore. Not that much anymore. Now I just make music, and sometimes stuff comes out and it sounds great, and I feel I should be working more on it and developing into a track. Sometimes it works out. I never, like, I used to be able to, I feel that like that, so I'm gonna make a track like that. But not anymore. Like, right now it's more like trying to get in tune. Like, if you listen to the podcast we've done with Mackenzie, I think it's episode 3 or 2, he talks a little bit about, and that really reached me a lot, because he seemed to be able, possibly through meditation and stuff like that, to kind of get himself into tune with whatever's behind, with where music comes from, and just let the music pour out of him. And I have sort of the same process somewhat, but I still, like, I cannot make a track in one day anymore. Maybe it can happen, but right now, compared to before I used to make that one track, be in the zone for a few hours at a time, and make that one track from start to finish. Right now, it feels more, and this is also why it feels more like a religious experience to me. It's when I kind of get a grasp of something, from beyond, and some sound or some melody or some, sample or arrangement. It feels like something I should explore. So I usually take at least, a few days and try to dig into that as much as I can. And it's not even like, it doesn't even feel like I'm doing the music, actually. My job is to become a good musician, but it's more to be able to transmit what I gather from the other side to music. And it kind of transformed the music that I do into something that I didn't think I was able to do.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
And that's odd, because I remember thinking about some sounds I was listening to other, music. Oh, I wish I would be able to do that. And now I'm able to do that, and I understand it's not how I thought. Maybe you can take it like that. Say, I really like to use the ideas of chaos and order. Right. So the place where music comes from is, I don't know if it's mostly chaos or all chaos, but it's chaos. And the order part is the musician, so you or I, trying to learn the technique for music theory, maybe trying to learn how to use the synthesizer, trying to learn how to use Ableton. This is all order because, all right, so when you push that button, this happens.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that, we become able to kind of establish a balance. So the more order we can create on our end, the more chaos we will be able to wrestle with and create balance with, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I got that.
And it kind of makes sense because the more competent musician you become, you will become able to create music that will be deeper, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
potentially.
for sure.
You know, there are traps in that also. Like you can easily get lost in, like I really love synthesizer.
Yeah.
And it's easy, just to buy a synth and spend time. Oh, this kind of make nice sound, and oh, this could also make that nice sound. And then you don't really make music anymore. Like I know a few people, they have like huge modular synth, and they buy new gear like almost every month. They don't have they have one track on SoundCloud that from 2005. You know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely get that bit.
So it's easy to get lost in that. It's easy to get lost in music theory and music technique. Because
I think that even part of it is that it's good to get lost in it now and then because you find something there.
Yeah, for sure, and yeah, but that implies at some point you're going to go back to actually making music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and because time flies. You know, I've just turned 40, and it's been fast. You know, it's been really
for sure
fast, and I'm definitely racing the clock right now. It feels like that, but the thing is, you have this balance that you can create between chaos and order, and you kind of bring you have to work hard to bring some order, to learn music theory, to learn how to use your sense, to learn how to use your DAW and stuff like that. You have to work. It requires effort. Maybe you watch tutorials, maybe you go to a teacher, and
yeah, definitely.
But then you can really create this amazing thing. And what I like to do is, how I like to put it, like me doing music is basically just creating a context for control chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
This is also why I like this stuff like generative sequencer or modular synthesizer and that kind of stuff, because it's not like you're not playing like on a piano, when you play a key and it does a note. It's more like you're starting to patch and you're starting to look at music differently in terms of voltages and harmonics and that kind of stuff. And then you create like I don't want to use the word cage, but you create a context.
Right.
Within that context, it can be small, it can be big. Within that context, you allow then chaos to express itself.
Yeah, for sure.
And
no, that's the same reason that I got into modular synth as well.
Yeah, you have this relationship with music that's it's not only you making the music by yourself, and it kind of like, let me just backtrack a little bit. When you kind of get lost into synth or music theory or music technique, I think that's one of the reasons maybe people tend to get lost in that might be ego, because it's kind of easy, like you can buy synth, you can have a job and it pays what it pays, and you can buy synth every now and then and say, oh, I have a nice collection of synth. Or you can go to a great teacher and you can be playing like really complicated stuff on your guitar or on your piano and say, oh, I'm a great guitarist, I'm a great piano player and whatnot. And so it feeds into your ego, and then your ego wants you to go more into that, to get fed more, And
yeah, definitely.
The thing with music, and I think that's what Mackenzie try maybe when I talk to Mackenzie, that's how I felt, and he lives the music, and that's also somehow how I feel I live the music. Is you just get in tune, you tune out your ego, and not entirely. I think it can be useful for music, but you kind of allow music to happen, and you have to kind of commit. Sometimes when I record, there are some notes that are not exactly how I want them, and sometimes I correct them. Like most of the time, I do correct them because I think it would sound better. But sometimes I just decide to leave them there.
Right,
Like an expression of something that's just beyond my control. You know? And doing music is like it's like a communion, and I'm not sure it's an English word. It's like you have this relationship with this universe. It's really a matter of balance, and if you have too much ego, and I have a lot of ego. Don't get me wrong, but, but when I make music, it's not about me. When the music, I don't even. Oh, hang on, I just heard some noise. That's fine. Yeah, it should be the cat. So, yeah, it's like the ego comes back at the end when I'm like, oh, that sounds great.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
I'm kind of proud because I did, I do work hard on my music, and yeah, it feels good, but at the same time, I understand right now it's not about me. It's not just me, and music is not really the expression of who I am as much as it is the expression of the relationship I have with life.
Right.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's a little bit weird because I never could. For example, I never could, like when I was making hip hop beats, mostly hip hop beats. Like people would come to me and say, "Oh, make a beat like Dr. Dre, or make a beat like DJ Premier, or stuff like that." I'm like, I can try, and I have tried, but it always kind of sounds like the music I do. Like I cannot. Like I'm a little bit jealous. I have to admit. I like to hate, on people who kind of make like Drake type beats and sell them for $50 online. But to be honest, like I'm a little bit jealous because I cannot do that. I cannot do a Drake type beat or high tech type beat. Like I really like the music, and definitely their music is a part, a very important part of my music. But it always, like every time I try to do something like this guy or that guy, it always ends up sounding like the stuff that I do. I cannot do music like anyone else, and I wish I could, and I would want someone to show me how to do that. But can you do that, actually? Can you do music that resembles someone else's music?
Yeah, for the most part, that's what I originally started doing. It's how I learned a lot of techniques I would try to replicate, specifically Aphex Twin's synthesizer presets. And so I go through and I've got a bunch of remakes of his songs, just not because I'm interested in like making one like it, just because when I make something that's exactly like someone else's and I try to think about the way they made it, then I know exactly how not to make it like that.
How do you do it? How do you go about doing that? Curious.
Well, usually it'll have to be a song that I'm interested in the sound of, or that sounds worthy, that I'm really into, and then I'll listen to it for a while. Usually I'll start with like the drums and work my way up from there, or start with the melody. Like for one I just released a little mix of, it was a remake of Polynomial C and Ernest Borgnine by Square Pusher and Aphex Twin. Yeah. For that one, I made the melodies, but before that, I made the synths presets so I could get a tone that sounded like it. And then I just tried to make the progressions, write those in there, and then do the drums, and then it was about it.
How do you manage to stick to the genre of music, to stick to the sound, to Like, how do you manage to not get sidetracked into say, oh, I find this sound. It's not exactly like that, but it sounds cool, and I'm gonna go that way. That's what happens to me. Basically. It happens right away. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do Dre like beats. And yeah, no.
Usually that does happen a lot, but usually what I'll do is I'll save it. Like if I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, I'll adjust something real quick. Then I'll save it as a different project file or something, and then I'll just keep on plowing ahead on to do that. Or usually what I'll do is I'll just finish it off and I'll just ignore that, and then when I'm done I'll duplicate it and then mess around with it and change it all up.
All right. Yeah,
so then I think of it kind of like, all right, well, I like this, let me finish off the thing, and then I've got this kind of project which isn't really a song, it's more of a little package of style of the song, and then I can go around and switch it up and kind of deal like that.
Maybe I should try that.
It's interesting. I've been doing that for a while. I mean, one of the very first songs I released on Spotify or SoundCloud years ago was a Boards of Canada Roy G. Biv remake, which was all done on an iPad.
Everything on an iPad.
Everything, and it sounded pretty close actually for being I was probably 12 or 13. It was pretty close to the original. But of course, the drums on the original were much, much better. But
trying to put together being 12 and having an iPad. When I was 12, I didn't have an iPad. Like there was no question about having an iPad. Like the best thing you could have when I was 12 was like I had a guitar, and some cheap Yamaha synth that would do salsa and tango, and that's about it. And I mean, I've never actually had an iPad, and people keep saying it's great for making music. And I'm not sure.
I mean, my thought on it is that it was nice to have, because that's all I had. But I mean, it's limited, and I guess usually there's like maybe two or three apps. The hardest bit is just recording anything and multi-tracking or making a track, in the sense that it doesn't have a DAW and that you have to record and layer like you'd have to do on a multi-track reel-to-reel. In that sense, it opens up new opportunities, but sound quality is okay. There's a couple apps like the Korg MS-20 app. That's really good. I learned synthesis when I was much younger using that app. But for the most part, it's cool, but I'd say if you can use a laptop, don't bother too much on an iPad. It's fun to have the apps for if you're like in a road trip. Yeah. And then you don't have to take a synth with you. But sometimes I just take a synth with me. But
that makes me think. I've just downloaded this. It's on PC, but I'm sure it's on Mac also. You should check it out if you don't know it already. It's VCV Rack.
Oh yeah, I've been using that ever since it came out.
All right, I just found out about it like last week.
Oh yeah, I did 3 songs using just VCV Rack.
Really?
Oh yeah, I love it. It's so good.
It's like for someone who wants to get into modular, it's perfect because it's free.
That's for me. I didn't have any modular at the time, so I was like, oh yeah, VCV Rack, this is awesome. And then as I got more into it, I went through a phase where I was like, I do not need any modular synths ever, and now because of this, is so great. But then I started like maxing my computer CPU out, and I was like, no, I need modular synths in real life.
Oh yeah, that's the problem if you have a slow computer. My computer is not that fast, and I can use VCV Rack a little bit, but I was trying to do some classical music with mutable instruments.
Oh yeah,
strings, and that. Yeah, it started to lag a little bit. It does sound cool, and I mean, it's free. So if for someone who wants to get into modular, it doesn't feel like a free app.
It doesn't.
Very proper.
It feels so good. It's really nice.
Like it's really like the next best thing, because you can try like modules that cost a lot of money, actual modules that actually.
And they're very, very, very close. I'm going to probably put a link to VCV Rack's page in the description.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And my favorite bit is the community of people that build plugins is amazingly huge. There is, I'm on the page right here. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's more than I can count on both hands and feet of packs of plugins for free.
Yeah.
And
like most of them are free.
Yeah, oh yeah. And the ones that are paid, there is like the specular synthesizer one from Mutable or from VCV Rack, which looks really good. I haven't bought any yet, which I probably should because I use it so much, but it's definitely worth checking out if anyone's watching this.
Yeah, for sure. Like especially like I just tried all Mutable instruments.
Yeah, and which is great because they're directly the same thing pretty much because they're actually digital.
And it makes me want to buy them actually,
Oh yeah.
Of course, it's exactly like you can make the argument that it's the same sound because they are mostly digital, and it's the same program. I've heard the creator Olivier collaborates with VCV to actually make them happen. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like that. But you still want to turn the knobs, and you still want to plug the cases yourself, But now sure. I'm probably gonna spend a lot of money into, and it's French also, so a little bit like national pride. It's not bad because French people we don't like. I'm not a huge fan of France. Like it's not a secret. Like I was born there. I live there right now. As you know, I'm looking to move out, to go out, and musically it's a little bit weird. We have a huge like pop scene, but like it's not really good. We have a very good like underground scene, whether it's hip hop or you have very good techno scene like electronic music. It's we have the French touch. You had Daft Punk and stuff like that, Justice. But overall, like culturally, it should be better. Like we have a great cultural history, like all the like French music from the 60s, 70s, 80s. You have amazing music, but I don't know, starting from the 2000s, it just seemed like we're trying to imitate the USA.
Yeah.
We're not doing a very good job at it. I don't know. You know a little bit about Japanese music? Pop music? Or hip hop or electronic?
Not really. No, not really. No.
You should get it. I send you a few links because Japanese, like culturally, they are doing something that's really interesting. And they've been doing that for a long time. So they look at what's great in other cultures, and then they adapt to their own culture, which is very peculiar. It's a very unique culture, Japan. If you've never been there, if you have the opportunity to travel there, spend some vacation, definitely recommend. It's like going in another planet.
Oh, I will for sure.
Yeah, so they take what's good in other cultures, and then they adapt and then they modify. So what they do, it looks and sounds a little bit like something that from the US or UK or wherever, but it still has a very unique flavor, especially when it comes to music. Like you can, like if you know Japanese, hip hop or electronic music, when I say pop music, that's what I mean. Actually, I'm not saying just pop genre, like everything that's somewhat popular, like electronic music. It can be metal, it can be not classical or. Well, they have amazing jazz musicians, and it's a little bit like when it comes to pop music, it does sound like hip hop. It sounds a little bit like US hip hop, but it's with a twist. There's always a twist. There's always something very unique to Japanese music, and this doesn't really happen in France. Fortunately, maybe it does. I don't know. I'm really hating on French music right now. Maybe I shouldn't. Sorry. I really like some of it. I really like some French hip hop. That's really good. If you actually listen to my the mix I just uploaded on Mixcloud. There's a lot of French, very good French hip hop in there, and also some Japanese stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I'll put a link to that mix down in the description too.
There's gonna be a lot of links. So yeah, like musically, I don't even know how we got to this French music thing. I forgot.
I can't remember either, honestly.
Just rambling. So yeah, basically I'm French and I'm making some music. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good rap.
Yeah, that's better sums it up.
Oh,